Chapter 1. A Girl with a Dream. Aisha was a little girl who lived in a small village. Her family was poor. Her father was a farmer, and her mother made bread to sell in the market. They worked very hard, but they did not have much money. Aisha's house was small. It had only 2 rooms. There was no electricity, so they used candles at night. Sometimes there was not enough food, but Aisha never complained. She loved her family very much. One evening, Aisha was outside. She looked up at the sky and saw something big and shiny. It was an airplane. It moved fast and disappeared into the clouds. "Wow!" Aisha said. "I want to fly a plane one day." Her little brother laughed. "You cannot fly a plane. Only rich people can be pilots." Aisha shook her head. "No, one day I will fly a plane. You will see." She did not know how, but she knew one thing. She had a big dream. Chapter 2. Aisha's Big Dream. Aisha could not stop thinking about airplanes. Every day she looked up at the sky and watched them fly. She imagined herself sitting in the cockpit, wearing a pilot's uniform and flying high above the clouds. At school, Aisha loved learning. She was the best student in her class. Her teacher, Miss Lila, noticed her hard work. "Aisha, what do you want to be when you grow up?" Miss Lila asked one day. "I want to be a pilot," Aisha said with a big smile. Some students laughed. "Girls cannot be pilots," one boy said. "Pilots are rich and live in big cities." Aisha felt sad, but she did not give up. Miss Lila put a hand on her shoulder and said, "Aisha, don't listen to them. If you work hard, you can do anything." That night, Aisha told her parents about her dream. Her mother smiled, but her father looked worried. "Aisha, becoming a pilot is very hard," he said. "We don't have enough money for a big school." Aisha nodded. "I know, Baba, but I will study hard. I will find a way." Her father sighed. "If this is your dream, then never give up." Aisha's heart filled with hope. She knew the journey would be difficult, but she was ready to fight for her dream. Chapter 3. Aisha's First Challenge. Aisha worked harder than ever at school. She woke up early every morning to study before helping her mother with housework. After school, she read books under the small oil lamp in their house. She wanted to learn everything about airplanes. One day, Miss Lila came to class with exciting news. "There is a science competition next month," she said. "The winner will get a scholarship for high school." Aisha's heart started beating fast. A scholarship? She knew this could help her study in a better school. After class, she ran to tell father. "Baba, there is a competition. If I win, I can go to a good school." Her father smiled but looked worried. "That's great, Aisha, but how will you prepare? We don't have extra books or materials." Aisha thought for a moment. Then she had an idea. I will borrow books from school, and Liba can help me study. Liba was her best friend. The next day, Aisha and Liba sat under a tree and studied together. Liba helped her read difficult words. You are very smart, Aisha, she said. You can win this. Aisha worked day and night. She made notes, practiced questions, and learned about science. But there was one problem. Her family could not afford extra paper. So she wrote on the back of old newspapers and used small pieces of chalk on a broken board. The competition day arrived. Aisha was nervous, but she remembered Miss Lila's words. If you work hard, you can do anything. She took a deep breath and walked into the exam hall. Chapter 4. The Big Competition. Aisha entered the big classroom where the competition was held. Many students from different schools were there. They had nice clothes, expensive books, and even fancy pens. Aisha felt nervous. Do I really belong here? She thought. She took a deep breath and remembered Liba's words. You are very smart, Aisha. You can win this. The teacher gave each student a test paper. Aisha looked at the questions. They were hard, but she had studied them before. She took her time and answered carefully. After an hour, the teacher collected the papers. The results will be announced soon, he said. Aisha waited outside with Liba. How do you feel? Liba asked. I don't know, Aisha said. The questions were hard, but I tried my best. After some time, the teacher came out with a list. The winner of the scholarship is Aisha. Aisha couldn't believe it. She had won. She covered her mouth in shock, then looked at Liba, who was already clapping. You did it, Aisha, Liba cheered. Aisha ran home to tell her family. Baba, Mama, I won, she shouted. Her mother hugged her tightly. Oh, my daughter, we are so proud of you. Her father's eyes filled with tears. Now you can go to a better school, he said. Your dream is coming true. Aisha smiled. This was just the beginning. She was one step closer to her dream of flying in the sky. Chapter 5. A New School. A New Challenge. Aisha was excited but also nervous. The new school was in the city, far from her small village. On the first day, her father took her to the bus stop. Study hard, Aisha, he said. We believe in you. Aisha nodded. I will make you proud, Baba. The city school was big. The classrooms had computers, big windows, and many students. Everyone wore neat uniforms. Aisha looked at her own dress. It was old but clean. She held her books tightly and walked inside. The teacher, Miss Layla, smiled at her. Welcome, Aisha. Please introduce yourself. Aisha stood in front of the class. My name is Aisha. I come from a small village. My dream is to become a pilot. Some students whispered and laughed. A pilot? That's a big dream, one boy said. Aisha felt embarrassed, but she remembered her father's words. We believe in you. She sat down and focused on her lessons. At lunchtime, Aisha sat alone. She missed her village, her sister Liba, and her simple school. But then a girl walked up to her. Hi, I'm Noor, she said. Can I sit with you? Aisha smiled. Yes, of course. Noor was kind. She shared her food and talked about school. Don't listen to the other students, she said. Dream big, Aisha. You can do it. That night, Aisha wrote in her notebook, Today was hard, but I will not give up. One day, I will fly in the sky. She knew the journey was tough, but she was ready for the challenge. Chapter 6. A Big Challenge. Aisha was doing well in school, but life was still hard. Her father worked long hours, and her mother still sold vegetables in the market. Money was always a problem. One evening, Aisha overheard her parents talking. I don't know if we can keep Aisha in school, her father said. We need money for food and bills. Aisha's heart sank. She couldn't let her dreams slip away. The next morning, she told Noor about it. Noor, I might have to leave school, Aisha said, her voice shaking. Noor's eyes widened. No, you are the best student in class. There must be a way. That day, Miss Layla made an announcement. There is a scholarship for hard-working students, she said. The winner will get free school fees and books. Aisha's heart raced. This was her chance. For the next few weeks, Aisha studied harder than ever. She woke up early, stayed after school, and even read her books under the streetlight when there was no electricity at home. On the day of the scholarship exam, she felt nervous. I have to win this, she told herself. She took a deep breath and started writing. The questions were hard, but she didn't give up. She used everything she had learned. Days later, Miss Layla walked into the class with a letter. The scholarship winner is Aisha! Aisha covered her mouth in shock. Noor hugged her tightly. At home, Aisha gave the news to her parents. I got the scholarship. I can stay in school. Tears filled her father's eyes. We are so proud of you, Aisha, he said. That night, Aisha looked at the sky. One day, I will fly among the clouds, she thought. Chapter 7. A New Opportunity. Aisha's scholarship made life easier. She didn't have to worry about school fees anymore. Now she could focus on her studies and dream of becoming a pilot. One day, a special visitor came to her school. He was a real pilot. He wore a white uniform with golden stripes on his shoulders. Good morning, students, the pilot said. I work for the national airline. We are looking for young, hard-working students to train as future pilots. Aisha's heart skipped a beat. This is my dream. After the speech, Miss Layla asked, "Who wants to be a pilot?" Aisha quickly raised her hand. Some students laughed. "A girl? A pilot?" one boy whispered. But Aisha didn't care. She was determined. The pilot smiled at her. "It takes hard work and courage to become a pilot. But if you believe in yourself, you can do it." After school, Aisha told Noor, "I want to apply for the pilot training program." Noor smiled. "I know you will do it, Aisha. You never give up." At home, Aisha told her parents. Her father was silent for a moment. Then he said, "If this is your dream, we will support you." Tears filled Aisha's eyes. "Thank you, Baba." Now Aisha had a new goal, to get into the pilot training program. But the road ahead was not easy. Chapter 8: The First Step. Aisha knew that becoming a pilot would not be easy. She needed to pass a tough entrance exam to get into the pilot training program. Every morning before school, she studied math and science. At night, she read books about airplanes. Noor helped her find study materials, and Miss Layla gave her extra lessons. One day, Miss Layla said, "Aisha, the exam is next month. Are you ready?" Aisha took a deep breath. "I will do my best, Miss Layla." On the day of the exam, Aisha woke up early. She prayed, ate a small breakfast, and walked to the test center. Her hands were shaking, but she reminded herself, "I have worked hard for this." The exam was difficult. There were questions about physics, mathematics, and logic. Aisha stayed calm and focused. She answered each question carefully. When she finished, she felt both nervous and excited. Did I do well enough? She wondered. A week later, the results were announced. Aisha's heart pounded as she looked for her name on the list. And there it was, Aisha Noor, passed. Tears of joy filled her eyes. She ran home to tell her parents, "Baba, Mama, I passed the exam." Her father hugged her. "I knew you could do it, my daughter." Now Aisha was one step closer to her dream, but the real journey was just beginning. Chapter 9: Flight School Begins. Aisha was accepted into the flight training program, but there was one big problem: money. The course was expensive, and her family could not afford it. "Don't worry, Aisha," Noor said. "There are scholarships for students like you." Miss Layla helped Aisha apply for a scholarship. She wrote about her dream, her hard work, and her passion for flying. Weeks passed, and Aisha waited anxiously for the results. One day, a letter arrived. With shaking hands, she opened it. "Congratulations! You have been awarded a full scholarship for flight school." Aisha screamed with joy. She hugged her parents and Noor. I can finally become a pilot. Soon, Aisha traveled to the city for training. The flight school was big and modern, full of students from different backgrounds. Some students came from rich families, and they had already flown in airplanes before. Aisha felt nervous, but she remembered her mother's words. Believe in yourself. The first few weeks were difficult. She studied aviation theory, practiced flight simulations, and learned about airplane engines. She woke up early and worked late into the night. One day, the instructor announced, "Next week, you will fly a plane for the first time." That night, she stood outside and looked at the sky. "One day, I will fly up there," she whispered. She was closer to her dream than ever before. Chapter 10. The First Flight. The big day had arrived. Aisha was going to fly a real airplane for the first time. She put on her uniform and walked to the airfield, her heart pounding with excitement. Her instructor, Captain Raymond, smiled at her. "Are you ready, Aisha?" "Yes, sir," she said confidently, though her hands were slightly shaking. She climbed into the small training aircraft and sat in the pilot's seat. The cockpit was filled with buttons, screens, and controls. She took a deep breath. "Remember your training," Captain Raymond said. "You can do this." Aisha started the engine, and the airplane roared to life. Slowly, she taxied the plane onto the runway. "Clear for takeoff," the control tower announced. Aisha gripped the control stick. She pushed the throttle forward, and the plane began to move faster and faster. The wheels lifted off the ground. For the first time in her life, Aisha was flying. She looked down and saw the tiny houses, roads, and rivers below. The sky was bright blue, and she felt free. Tears filled her eyes, but she smiled. "I did it," she whispered. After a few minutes, she followed the instructions and landed the plane safely. As she stepped out, her classmates and instructors clapped. Captain Raymond patted her shoulder. "You are a natural pilot, Aisha. Keep working hard." That night, Aisha called her family. "Mama, Baba, I flew a plane today." Her mother cried with happiness. "We are so proud of you, my daughter." Years later, Aisha became a professional pilot. She flew airplanes all over the world. She returned to her village one day, not as the poor girl who once dreamed of flying, but as Captain Aisha. Her story became an inspiration to many, proving that with hard work and determination, even the sky is not the limit.